Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us for today. AI, think patient, not the technology. The session is sponsored by Astrix. It will be presented by Slickbit Technologies. We can go to the next slide, please. Before we go into today's content, I want to take a moment and just tell you a little bit about who Astrix is. If you haven't been on one of our webinars before, I want to welcome you. If this is something that if you're coming back to our webinars, I want to thank you for joining us again. Just a little bit about us as a company. We were established in 1995 and are vendor and platform agnostic. What does that mean? We're a consulting company. We work with technology in the life science sector. We don't align with any one technology. We work with a great many partners, great partners like our friends here at Slickbit. We have about 1,200 employees. We operate from locations in the United States and overseas. 90% of our team members hold advanced science degrees, which is something we're very proud of. We're very much a science-based organization helping other science-based organizations. And the type of companies that we help are everybody from startups to Fortune 1000, life science enterprise, CPG, chemical, government agencies, and research institutions. So that's just a little bit about the company. I'd like to share with you a little bit about our services on the next slide, and then we'll turn it over to our presenters. So we offer end-to-end service offerings. We like to say that our services accelerate digital transformation and optimize your performance across your ecosystem. And this is everything from strategic services like helping people understand what the technology stack needs to look like, carry them forward, through helping you select the right technologies to build out that technology stack, helping with development and implementation of those systems, the validation of those systems after the fact, and then even ongoing application support delivered in a variety of different ways. We can even go as far as helping staff your organization. We can staff technical personnel, and we could staff scientific personnel. So that's just a little bit about who Astrix is as a company and what we do. I'd like to go ahead and we can now turn the presentation over to our speakers. So we can go to the next slide, please. So today we're going to be joined by Gayatri and Harsha. They are with us from Slickbit. I won't go ahead and read their bios verbatim. You can read them or I'll let them speak for themselves, but I'm going to sit back and enjoy the presentation along with the rest of you, and I'll come back on at the end and help out with questions. Gayatri, I think you're going to take over from here.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to this session today. A little bit about us. At Slickbit, we've been around for over 10 years now. Until 2020, we were primarily a product company, which we successfully exited. And since then, we are into digital services. In the life sciences space, our entire focus is on building custom AI solutions across the pharma value chain. We have a team of engineers who could build these solutions for life sciences customers. A little bit about the session today. So Harsha would be walking through the terminologies in AI and how that would be used or relevant across the life sciences space. I would be talking about the democratization of AI and a little bit about how AI can be applied in the life sciences space. We'll run through a demo also talking about that. Then we'll be talking about data privacy and how we could address data privacy when using LLM solutions. To get started, I'll hand it over to Harsha.
Thanks, Gayatri. Hello, everyone. So before we go deep into this presentation, right? So I would like to give some kind of terminology so that once we speak all those terminologies in the further slides, it will be very easy. So first, I'll start off with a very simple, like what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence, if you have to break it out, right? Like whatever humans does, just the same thing the program or the machines are going to do. That's what is artificial intelligence. Simple thing. Currently, the world, right, we can divide these AI actually into three different broadly into three different phases: narrow AI, general AI, and super AI. Currently, in this current revolution, currently we are at general AI revolution where ChatGPT, Gemini, and a lot of other LLMs are available. And super AI is something like we can tell we can say something like what we see in the movies, where robot can do anything. So that is what is super AI. And that is as industry people are talking, like it will take another 20 to 30 years to come to that level, right? So that's what it is. So other than, so Gayatri, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So when we are talking about AI, right? So there are a lot of other terminologies also that people keep raising, like machine learning, deep learning, data science. What is AI? So AI we already talked about. Artificial intelligence. Now let me talk a little bit in a very simple terms of what is machine learning, deep learning, and data science. So if you see here, so machine learning is something like we have huge amount of data, right? So we have algorithms. So these algorithms are actually used to train this. This data is used to train this algorithm. That is called machine learning in a simple way, right? So if you see artificial intelligence is a big, it's a big umbrella under which machine learning is just one part, right? And deep learning is little more, it's under the umbrella of deep machine learning only. We can say it's simply like a rough replica of our human brain and nervous system. Like for example, what we have is we have different algorithms, and those algorithms are actually linked in such a way that the AI will respond something like how human will respond. Like for example, if you ask what is the capital city of United States, it'll give Washington DC. So how this happens is it'll like once you ask any question, right? My brain, the signal will go to my brain and I will reply it, right? Something similarly happens in the back end also. Like once we ask any question to any deep learning model or any model, right? So the same thing will happen where it will hit the algorithms. So in algorithms, it will retrieve the value and it will give it, right? Now to do all this stuff, right, we require something called data, right? So data science is a field where it combines both statistical and computation techniques to extract some insights of the data. So insights can be anything, like if you wanted to train the model, or if you wanted to create some kind of data visualization, or if you want to transform the data in such a way that you hide some of the confidential data. All these things come under data science. Gayatri, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So the next term which I wanted to talk about is what is generative AI. So generative AI is simply creating new content is called generative AI. So how this content is created is like we already have some existing data, and so the patterns, as I explained in the previous slide, right? There are some patterns or algorithms. So what we do is we train the data, we train these models. So once we train these models, right, it will give an output. It's something like simply we can say like if you train a kid to speak English, then he's going to give answers in English if you ask something in English, right? Something like that. We are going to train the models, and it's going to reply. It's going to reply with some new content, right? Gayatri, next slide. Yeah, the next one. Everyone must be. Everyone have heard it many times. Like, what is an LLM? LLM is simply if you take large language model. So the large refers to the amount of data, like extensive amount of data that the model has been trained with. It can be petabytes of data. Take for example, the ChatGPT 4.0 has been trained nearly with 80 petabytes of data, and they're going more and more like the models, right? If you say Mistral, which is like one of the open source LLM, it has been trained even like now the next version they're trying to train it is even more amount of data. Like it's like they're going, so that is what it's called. That's why these are called large language models, because large is like a lot of data has been trained with. Language is something like before, when you wanted to talk to any kind of algorithm or any kind of machine, right, you have to talk it in terms of programming language. Now how you are talking, like when you're using ChatGPT or Gemini, you're just asking in English or you are asking some local language and it's giving an answer. That is nothing called, it's actually processing a natural language, right? That's what the language refers to, and the model is something like it is making predictions for us. It's creating new content, it's making predictions, it's making sentimental analysis. So that's why it's called large language model. So the common models that we are seeing, which we are using in day-to-day life, ChatGPT or from OpenAI, or Gemini from Google, Llama from Meta. MedLM is also from Google. MedLM, I wanted to mention it here very well because of the audience that we are in. So life sciences, for life sciences or for the medical people, right? So Google is coming up something on the medicine side, which is called MedLM, right? Gayatri, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so a few more terminologies that I wanted to talk about, which we are going to talk about in the future slides, is something. First one is the prompt engineering. So prompt engineering, what is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is something like you ask a question to an LLM, it gives an answer. So what kind of question you ask, that is called prompt. So what is the challenge over here? If it is a simple question, then why it is called prompt engineering? Because there are some techniques in the prompt engineering as well. It's just, if you ask like create a story, which is a girl is sitting on a beach side, create a story. If you give some context like that, it will give an output. Now if you tell a girl is sitting on a beach and she's having a happy mood, then it will give another context. So you're adding more and more context to the prompt, so it will give a much better answer, much better story it will give. Now if you provide more and more context, saying that she has her child beside, they both are enjoying, give me some more story, then it will get. So it's like you keep on asking questions, like it's like asking anyone also. Like for example, if I ask anyone like how does a particular country look like, then it will give a general opinion. Now if you ask any other question saying that how does that place look like, or how does that city look like, then it will give more and more detailed answer it will give. Similarly also in prompt engineering, whenever you are talking to LLM, it is very important that you give as much context as possible, so that you will get the right response. So lots of times people make this mistake saying that LLM is not giving me right answers. No, it's not the LLM is not giving the right answer. Consider LLM is like an Einstein. See, you should ask the right question to it in a right way, then it will give an answer definitely, because the amount of data that has been trained is so huge that it can answer most of your questions, right? Now let's coming to RAG. RAG is like an advanced version of prompt engineering. Like until now I was telling prompt, like you give some kind of question, you give some question, you ask something and you give more context in terms of sentences, right? Now if you wanted to give more context in terms of documents, take for example, I have like a 3 pages PDF document, and I want to give that as a context to an LLM to create something. Then how you will do? So that is where this RAG technique will come into picture, right? If you see here, what we are going to do is with RAG, right? Where the main intention of prompt engineering or RAG is give more and more context to an LLM, so that it will give the right kind of response for the end user, right? Gayatri, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So next, few more things that you must be hearing with AI is fine tuning and building your own model. So fine tuning, I always give this example whenever I ask, like when someone asks what is fine tuning, what is RAG, all these things, right? So I ask, like, if you wanted to teach your kid a language, take for example, you want to teach your kid English language, right? Then if you're training that kid right from your childhood, right? And if he or she becomes an English expert, right, then it's like building your own model. If you're training a candidate who's well versed with take for example Spanish, and you are trying to train him on top of his Spanish knowledge with English, right, then that is called fine tuning. That's the difference, right? If you want, like, right from starting, if you're training something, then you are building your own model over there. But here, what is that? The LLM is already having some capabilities. On top of, if you wanted to add some more like some more specific data set or specific need or something like for example company documentation or something like that, so that the LLM will give much more better response, that's what is called fine tuning, right? That's what it is. So Gayatri, can you go to the next slide? Oh yeah, over to you, Gayatri.
Okay. Thank you, Harsha, for setting the context. So now that we have an understanding of what all techniques are available while using LLMs, a brief would be that until now, building any AI software solution was very resource intensive. Also, it needed like deep AI and ML expertise. You needed experts to build the algorithms right from scratch. And it was also very cost intensive. But over the last few years, what has happened is all the cloud service providers have come up with multiple ways wherein there are a lot of pre-built algorithms that are available. There are more and more interfaces that are available for software developers to work with. And also the computing power of the cloud providers that are offering has improved, has enhanced greatly. the software development tools that are available for developers have also been enhanced. There are like better coding assistants now. There are like smart OCRs available, which has made the overall development of a AI software solution faster, and also it has brought it to the hands of many, which has in turn led for a infusion of creativity into the market, because now this technology is available in hands of a larger pool of software developers who could come up with a wide variety of solutions, who could help a wider variety of audience to build these software solutions. Also, somebody like a consultant like me or the audience here, to build something basic and try out with, I'm sure all of us would have experimented with ChatGPT, but also to build something slightly better than that, I mean, it has been enabled. To build for enterprises, we would need the assistance of a software developer, but we could still play around and see what all has been offered as part of these pre-built algorithms. Now, given that, how is it that all of this ties up to life sciences? In the life sciences space, we are primarily a information-driven industry. For us, everything is either documents or text or sources of information, right from drug development all the way until drug launch to post-marketing. Everything is driven by different sources and forms of information. Now, given that, how could AI help us? So we could start from something as basic as I want to read my document. I have a document which is 100-pager. I want it to be summarized. I have some questions on certain text in the document which I want to be answered. I want to translate the text of the document into any other language that is required for my organization. So something as simple as that, if I provide the right kind of prompts to the LLM, I could get the right kind of response. Now, this could also be built internally, like for an organization specifically. Now, moving on, like Harsha said earlier, all that matters when we are dealing with large language models is the kind of context that you give it, which was also about RAG. I talked about a simple document wherein it's a 100-pager or a 200-pager, which I wanted to be summarized. But now let's say I have a pool of documents. I have a larger pool of documents. It could be an even huge data set. So I want to extract or understand this pool of documents. For example, I have a pool of SOPs which is lying in my organization, or I have a set of policies that have been determined. It could also be like contracts or invoices, or it could be sources like what we'll shortly demo is like guidance documents. It could be also published literature. So it could be any pool of document set or any pool of data set that is available with us, from which we want to have certain contextual information or certain contextual responses for us, which is useful either internally in the organization to understand what is available in that pool. It could also be to draw insights, because it's not humanly possible for me to read thousands of SOPs that are available in my organization, especially in the quality area where we're dealing with so much manufacturing SOPs. Also, every area like has standard guidelines of its own. Also, it could be to search. So search needn't be document based search. It could be text based search, and we further talk about semantic searches, wherein also associated text based information could be then retrieved. Also, what is largely talked about is about generating a draft summary. I have a certain question, and I have a pool of documents from which I want a draft summary. So LLMs are also experts with doing that. So a combination of availability of text and the kind of context that you provide to your LLM leads to better output. Then if you want to further talk further about what other advanced outcomes that I could get out of my LLM, wherein we train my LLM. So I have an LLM which is already trained on certain understanding of English and medical text, and on top of it, I want to give it more training to understand something specific to my use case, which is also now being largely tried in terms of study protocol writing, or it could be adverse event prediction. Let's say what I would do if I wanted to generate a draft study protocol for me is I would train it on all the historical protocols that are available in my organization or publicly available sources, and from that I would start asking the LLM to generate draft text for certain sections. because then again, it's not humanly possible to read everything, understand all parameters. In these areas, LLM could be a good aiding tool to give you a first draft. At the same time, it could be also used for something like an event prediction or a query prediction. It's the same thing. You train your LLM, which already understands basic English or basic information about medical text, and on top of it, you keep training it further so that it is more contextually relevant to your use case, and then you try to get outcomes out of it. So in this regard, across life sciences, there are multiple ways in which we could use LLMs. One is like unstructured to structured text, which is a very popularly used use case along with copilots. Unstructured could be you have transcripts, you have meeting transcripts, you want an actionable output out of it, or you have a case data that has come to you in safety and you wanted to put it in a certain structured format to submit it to the health authority. Search again, a lot of search that is done internally in an organization is document based or title based or metadata based, but this could be further enhanced to make it to text-based search, text and associated text-based search. Semantic is also where it understands similar terminology. Another good way is integrating LLM to existing solutions, existing pool of documents which are already there, databases which are handling all these pool of documents, to integrate LLMs to that to extract output from it. Chatbots is also, so chatbots have been around for quite some time, but what has changed over the last couple of years is the way they are built. So it helps you like address a larger question set. Also, they can be built faster. Speech to text again is a good way, like getting transcripts of speech is now relatively faster and easier with the newly available models, and also running analysis on the text that has been provided. You could do like multiple analysis on the text and establish certain KPIs out of which you can get a good response. With that, I'd like to briefly show a tool which helps. Okay, so let me just.
Gayatri, can you relog in? Actually, it has been some time, right? You might have logged out. Actually, you might not get responses. But
Okay. Okay, great then. So I'll just ask the first question because it takes some time, and then I can walk through with what it is here. Okay. So what we have done here with this regulatory assistant, like we earlier talked about co-pilots or using a larger pool of documents, and we took a dump of all the FDA guidance documents, and I mean, Harsha would also walk through the architecture of this, and we integrated with, in essence, we built an LLM on top of it. So this allows you to understand or do a chat-like conversation wherein you can understand everything about the guidance documents that you want to play with. I'll walk through a set of questions to see what all are the possibilities that you can do with it. And this is not just restricted to FDA documents. You could do like multiple document sets. It could be FDA, EMA, Health Canada, or we could go entirely different tangent. It could be like, clinical trial documents that are available either externally or internally, or like I said, SOPs that are available. So it could be with any document set, but this is a good starting point to see what all is possible. So I said, okay, what are the requirements for filing an NDA? Now, it gives me a response, and also it gives me references as to how it could be done. Now, let me say, okay. So it says initial submission acknowledgement, there's a 30-day review period, there's a review process, and references. So also moving on, let's say I take a different tangent and I want to say Okay. So it says I need to do the risk classification. These are the possible types and these are the possible ways. I'll probably do a follow-up to this that, also, like even the questions that we ask here, let's say I ask a broad question, I get a very broad answer. If I make my question more specific in terms of the prompt that I'm providing, I start to get like more specific answers. Also, what you see here is because we have restricted it to, get us the responses from the FDA guidance document dump, the closeness of the response is far better than what you would get out of a generic prompting tool, which could be like, just generally GPT or Gemini. So here, because we have taken a dump of FDA documents and we have said that, only respond me from this, because let me show you this. Okay. Okay, so because we set the context to this LLM, we said that, only give responses for questions that are relevant and responded from the documents. Now, when I say Singapore, though it's a spelling mistake, it understood as Singapore. And also it says that, just ask relevant questions, because that is not relevant to this LLM. We have restricted the context. Also, we have made it more deeper. So I can ask it questions which are very specific and get the response accordingly. Now, let's say I say that, okay. So then it picks it up from a certain document and says that, what could be the possible timelines in which. So while we are building this LLM, there are multiple cycles of once you start getting the response, that you start refining the response also. So when we're tackling a larger pool, we also need a business input which says that, how your response is coming out. But the more and more context you set, the better responses you start getting in. Maybe I could ask like one last question that, okay, not sure if it'll pick the right document, but it will get close. Okay, let's see if this is okay. It picked something close enough, but let's say the more I guided, the better responses I would get out of it. I mean, I can go on and on, but I'll close with one last question just to show the breadth that you can play around once you have an LLM integrated with your document pool. Okay, so it says it's that for a generic drug, and it talks about, okay. So once an LLM is integrated and I've given it good context in terms of the outcome that you want out of it, the kind of responses that you start getting are better and better. And the more you keep fine-tuning it, and all of it is prompt, both at the front end, the questions that you ask it, also while we are developing from the back end, the prompts that we provide to it. Like we have said that, it's a FDA US based guidance document set. You only respond from the document pool that we have taken up, and do not respond outside. And then also, like further, like the kind of response that we want, whether it should be to bullets or into paragraphs, you could also play around with that. What kind of references are we providing? Do we want like one or multiple references for each of the question that is asked? And with all of those prompts, they're also like plain English prompts that are provided both ways, which helps us get like better and better responses. Sriharsha, you'd like to talk a bit about the architecture that we have used here?
Yeah, thanks, Gayatri. So here what we do is like take for example, Gayatri is the user over here. She has so it is built on some kind of web application, right? She asks a query, right? When the query is asked, right, what we'll do is, so the machine will not understand English, right? So what it will do is it will convert that particular particular sentence into a machine understandable language. That is being done by my model called embedding model, right? So that embedding model, what it will do is it will convert that into machine understandable language. And what we do is here, so we have a vector database. So we have a database. So generally we use vector database for this one, for these kind of AI applications. So here in the vector database, what it does is, take for example, she has something called what is an ANDA, right? So it will search in the database like what is ANDA, and it will just try to get the context of what all documents or what all information that is stored in the database with respect to ANDA, and it will actually, what it will do is it will retrieve that content, and that query is sent to the LLM. Now this machine, this will write, it will not be in English. It will be in a language, like it will be in some kind of numerical format. So that once that is sent to an LLM, right, what it will do is it will understand, LLM will understand that language, and it will respond to you in plain English. So that's what will happen over here. Now if you have constantly, if you have a lot of documents, right, we can do document injection as well. So what we do is we can write some kind of interface or something like that, where all these documents are pre-processed, and we embed them and we store them in vector database. So the vector database, right, this database will we keep on updating this database with the latest information, so that the user will get the latest information. Whenever he is asking any question, right, he gets the latest information only, instead of getting the old information. So that's what it is. So here, like if you see some kind of technical words are there, like vector database, embedding model, LangChain, all these things are little technical. Like vector database is nothing but we are using vectors. Like we'll have a word, and semantically the words are stored in the vector database. That's what is called vectorization of a database. And we can do so. That's more about it. I don't, Gayatri, anything else you want me to add over here?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, good, Gayatri.
Okay. So when we're talking about AI and LLMs, I think one thing that we have to definitely talk about is data privacy and any kind of bias that we see in the outcome. Especially in the life sciences space, one of the topmost concern that has been listed is data privacy and how LLMs use my data. The example that we saw, that was on a publicly available data source, but ultimately the goal is to use it for internally available sources. And the question that is largely asked is, how is the LLM using my data? There are multiple techniques that are available, but mostly everybody gets concerned when we talk about private and confidential data sources and LLM in the same statement. So questions like, how is the data stored? How is it being used by the LLM? Once I train my LLM and it is being reused for other cases, is there any data leak? And is the data secure when I'm training my LLM? Also about the bias that comes in the outcome. And in the life sciences space, accuracy is really important. So how do we tackle all of that? So there is no straightforward way in which all of these questions can be tackled, but there are multiple techniques that are available using which one by one the outcome and the privacy issues can be mitigated. And after that, what is needed is transparency. How transparent are you to your audience and also to yourself in terms of how LLMs are using your data? So the most popular technique, I think the biggest thing that you can do with your data is first to pre-process it. While pre-processing, there are multiple techniques which are also used now for pre-processing. You could mask the data, you could minimize the data, also using synthetic data, which is used by a lot of product firms where synthetic data is created. There are AI generated synthetic data sets which are used to train your LLM, and then those LLMs are utilized, which are like a pre-trained LLM, which is then utilized on your internal or confidential data. So all these techniques put together like help reduce any kind of privacy concerns. Also, addressing privacy concerns needs an understanding of what is the outcome that you're looking for. Based on the outcome, a different kind of techniques can be deployed. There are also like technology and architecture techniques that can be used to address each of these questions. I think Harsha will talk about that. Harsha?
Yeah, thanks, Gayatri. So as Gayatri has raised some concerns regarding the address privacy concerns, right? Like how my data is stored. Like when I so we'll use some like currently whatever way that people are currently storing their data in their database, right, on the cloud services using robust encryption or granular level access firewalls, some kind of compliance rules. So the same things will apply over here also, because if you see in my previous in one of our previous slides, right, we are using a database over here. So the database is similar, like how we are going to do, how we are going to provide the access to the data. It's going to be the same. Nothing much is going to change. Like if you're trusting any cloud provider, we can use the same cloud provider and same kind of security practices in a way that your data is securely handled. And next, whenever I'm trading any data, right, is my data secure? I would say like 99.9% of the times the data is secured, because I'll tell you the reason why. See, here we are dealing with petabytes of data. It's not gigabytes, it's not it's not megabytes and gigabytes. We're dealing with petabytes of data. So in the petabytes of data, right, the information that you're going to train, right, it will be lost. Okay, but if you think I don't want to take that 0.1% risk also, then what generally people what we can recommend is they can do self-hosting and then go for an open source LLM instead of going with a commercial LLM, other closed source LLM like ChatGPT or Gemini. We can go with an open source LLM and do a self-hosting. If that is there, right, then everything will sit on you, because the open source also, it's like it can't go outside. The model that you're going to train or anything, right, it's going to stay in your environment only. So there is no way the data is going to go out of your domain, right? Next, reusability of internal trained LLM. Yes, we can use it, but we need to do a review. But take for example, like another example as well, like take for example, in a school, there is an English teacher and there is a science teacher, and now if you want English teacher to go into explain science subject, right, so it's not appropriate, right, because he doesn't understand, he doesn't know the depth of all the subjects. So whenever you're taking a decision, right, you should take that like take for example, I created something on regulatory assistant, and if you wanted to do something on HIPAA or something like that, that's not going to be, it's not going to do, right. So you should take a decision whether that is going to, that you should take a decision whether that will be useful or not. But since these LLMs are trained internally, it's up to you whether you can use it or not, right? And next, addressing changing regulations in LLMs. If you see the architecture diagram that we shown in the previous previous two slides, right, I have put something called pre-processing and where we are going to send the documents, right? So whatever documents that are getting changed, right, so we can have a pipeline in place where those change documents can be we can constantly keep the documents in place. The pipeline will be there. so that all the change documents, all the change regulations, right, we can constantly put it in our database, and whenever user asks any questions, we can give the latest information. So that is called RAG technique. So with the RAG technique, we can address the changing regulations with LLMs. I think next slide. So the next one people talk about is on the hallucination and potential bias. Yes, there will be hallucination will be there, potential bias will be there. So the intention of doing the now what as a company we have to do is we have to work towards reducing that hallucination or potential bias. Take for example, I am from India, and if I'm speaking anything about US or any other country, right, I will definitely be little more biased on what of my country, the birth of my country, right? But what you have to do internally is like what someone who's asking question has to do is he has to put loads and loads of information on my mind about all the countries, so that I will be less biased to my country, right? Similarly over here, that's what we see, the different techniques that we are using to reduce the potential hallucination and potential bias, right? Large and relevant data sets, right? If you wanted to reduce the bias, you should go with as much information as possible, right? And you should make sure that you cover all the border patterns. Like if you wanted to talk about all the countries, right, then give information about all the countries. Don't give information about few countries only. Then the LLM will reply based on whatever you give, right? Next, something we can do something called ensemble learning. Ensemble learning is something like we have two models to evaluate the answer. Take for example, it's called diverse, like we have diverse models. Take for example, you ask a question to one model, it gives one answer. Now this answer, right, we are going to ask the same question to another model as well, to just verify whatever answer that he has given. We just wanted to verify it again. So that's called ensemble learning. And there is something called RAG technique as well. These RAG and the algorithm techniques of RAG technique, right? If you're going to provide more and more context to your question, then you'll get more and more appropriate answers, right? And algorithm techniques is something like if like the model is already been trained, or you have a RAG in place. Now, if there is much like you ask some question. Take for example, I work with Gayatri on this. Take for example, we worked with Gayatri on regulatory assistant. So once we created the regulatory assistant, right? What I told her is, Gayatri, I'm going to give you a sheet. I'm going to give like whatever the response are coming from the model, like 100 questions are there. Now you're going to evaluate whether the answers are proper or not. That is called human feedback. So based on that, right, I'm going to change my logic. Like if she tells that the answers are 80% accurate or 70% accurate, right, based on that, I'll change my coding. Like I'll change some techniques, like how I store it in the database, or how I do modeling, how I do embedding, which kind of model I need to take. I'm going to do some kind of postmortem, and I'm going to change it. So this is called human feedback. So these are some techniques are there. Like you can do red teaming also. Take for example, if there is any wrong answers are there, then we can red flag it, saying that okay, this particular thing you should not reply at all. Take for example, you're storing passwords, and if I ask the LLM to give some passwords, right, then it should not. I can block it actually. I can block it in LLM, saying that in prompt, saying that don't ever give any kind of sensitive information like passwords or any kind of other like XYZ. Then LLM what will do is, like if the user asks, can you give me the password of Sriharsha, then it will tell it's a sensitive information, I'm not going to give it. So these are some of the techniques, like based on the feedback from the business user, right, we can make sure that we can tweak the model in such a way that we can reduce hallucination and potential bias. Gayatri, over to you.
So with that, we wanted to bring it to a conclusion that given now technology is in hands of a lot of people, like software developing teams like ours, and a larger pool which can help build different kinds of solutions, which can also help build solutions for a larger document or data set base. Also, the way these things are being developed has changed drastically. So the pace of development has enhanced. All the concerns that are raised when the terms Gen AI and LLM are used, multiple techniques are progressively coming up in the market to address them. And things like data privacy, hallucinations, bias. We spoke about few techniques here, but there are multiple ways in which this could be brought down. So given that as an industry which is focused on bringing the drugs to the patients in the fastest and most efficient manners, I think we should more and more embrace this technology, look at our processes and see how best can we modify them for future so that we get the drugs to the patients faster. I think, Kevin, over to you.
Great, thank you. Wonderful presentation. I'm mesmerized at and enjoyed quite a bit of it myself. So thank you for a great presentation, a lot of detail. Really appreciate the demo portion of that. We're going to go ahead and get the recording stopped.